Hello and welcome back to Top Shelf Books. In the previous episode, if you're following me from there, bless you for listening, I gave you the wrong Tumblr link. So this is the correct Tumblr link. So you can visit me at Books and Piles on Tumblr if you want to see all the things on my TBR. In today's episode, we are looking at something that is very prevalent in the world right now in October. We are going to take a look at leaves in both nonfiction and fiction. In my part of the world, the leaves are changing and beautiful, so I hope that you are getting to see that as well, whether it's part of your natural landscape or maybe you have to travel to see some leaves. But definitely a beautiful time of the year and a time of the year that gets us thinking about renewal and transformation as well. As I prepared to talk for today's episode, I realized I didn't really know what exactly made leaves change colors. So I asked my resident scientist, and he taught me about photoperiodism. So basically, we're looking at organisms, in this case leaves, as they respond to seasonal changes in day length and all the things that come with that in terms of increased rainfall, colder temperatures. So the chlorophyll in leaves being the part of the plant that helps it to get and transform energy, starts to break down, and that exposes colors that were already there, the orange or yellow, in the carotenoids and flavonoids. The exception to this is some leaves will produce more anthocyanins. These are your really, really red leaves. That is a separate production that they go through. And when you see your leaves on the ground, the brown of the leaves, what you're actually seeing is the cell wall of the leaves, which are in fact brown, because everything else has started to be used up and broken down at that point. So if it is leaf season where you are, what should you be doing? Hopefully going out and looking at some leaves. I know some folks that love to press them and make some beautiful art. For my money, walking through the leaves and smelling that delicious combination of cinnamon broom and rain. I love the smell that leaves make. The only thing I can kind of compare it to is I had a friend whose dad used to smoke a pipe, and for whatever reason, we used to like to play with the pipes, and the smell that they would have in them, that sort of old vanilla smell, is comparable to the autumn leaves. So here are a couple books to give you some suggestions for how we can connect with all those leaves that are littering our walks and piling up on the roadsides. So there are a lot of books in this particular episode, so I'm not going to take you through each one, but I have included a list at the end, so if there's anything you're seeing that you want to dig into, the information will be there. I did promise you in the first episode I would try to give you sort of the guideposts or the signposts, the most common books for a topic, and then also maybe things you haven't stumbled on, hopefully, that you can add to your list. So The Forest Unseen is going to be a book that comes up if you start to dig into leaves, trees, forests, and it is really wonderful. The author going into nature and experiencing it as it changes, and a really good meditative process for all of us. And if you have a reasonably wild place nearby, you will find that if you go around the same time every day, or if you become a regular presence, animals will sort of settle down, the birds will settle down, and they'll be used to you being part of the landscape if you're just quiet and not bothering anything. The Lives of Leaves is cultural and looks at what leaves mean to us. The Book of Leaves, you're going to be doing a little bit more identification. I love great big books like this where you have lots of pictures and drawings. And then The Life of the Leaf actually looks at science and how science functions, but it does it through the leaf as an example. So that one's kind of different than the others, but hopefully something that might give you some interest. I wanted to include a few more general studies. So Leaves by Sandved, you're looking at the uses of leaves in all parts of the world. So again, that culture, the similar thing with the tallies, myth, magic, and medicine, and then Extraordinary Leaves focuses more on photography. But all, if your weather is too bad to get out and look at the leaves, time to read about some. And of course, one of the places that our lives intersect with plants and with leaves specifically are in the things that are edible. I am not the most health conscious person in the world, so I will leave you to look up the various benefits of the different leaves here. But here are some of the leaves that intersect with human culture. Obviously, not encouraging you to add any of the ones to your life that might be a vice, but they are, sort of central to human culture and part of how we have interacted with plant life in terms of creating crops for profit. Certainly tea in the East India Company and the imperialism that followed, certainly tobacco in the American colonies. So just some examples of leaves in our culture. You may have heard of sort of a push in the springtime not to mow your lawn, to leave some new growths for early pollinators. There's also a push to not rake up your leaves, and I like this because I just like having leaves around myself, but they provide winter cover for a great many species that overwinter, as well as insects that lay their eggs. And of course, some of those things will then become food later on for other creatures. But I wanted to just introduce you to some insects associated with trees, so leafcutter ants. And if you have not looked at the work of Bert Holtobler before, he does some wonderful work on insects in the book Superorganism. It's not a sit down and read casually book, it's enormous, but it's wonderful to page through and wonderful to see how those social insects like ants work. It's that time of year. Not only do we have leaves on the ground, but if you are not reading something scary, you might want to add something scary to your life, right? Some of these I have read and some I dug up just to share with you. So I taught House of Leaves to my students a few semesters ago, and it's a very unusual book. That's putting it mildly. You might need a mirror to read it. You might need a therapist to read it. It really changes your view of reality, and it was really fun. I had experienced it as a reader myself, but experiencing it with the students was something else because they would come into class and just, what was that? And I left my lights on last night. I was so scared. So that one's definitely worth your time if you've not had the experience. The others I've included here, Bloom is a sapphic book. I haven't gotten a chance to open up Autumnal yet, but I am excited to check it out because readers are saying that you really have to pay attention to the background of the panels and all the little clues that are hidden into the art. I am an ElfQuest reader, and that is something that I really like about those graphic novels, so I am excited to see how this works as well. All right, so perhaps the leaves have fallen where you are, or you're having particularly low temperatures. So now is a great time to pick up a beautiful book of photography. Plant photography can be so amazing. I try it myself from time to time, but I do not have the skill of these particular writers. So Nature's Fabric, again, looks at that intersection of nature and culture. So what do we use leaves for? How they kind of shaped our experiences on the earth. But I've decided to include some seeds and bark with that as well. So these are generally more expensive books because they are photography. They're your coffee table type books, but really beautiful. And I think when we get to those gray winter days, we can all use a little bit of beauty in our lives. All right, so I hope this has given you some leaf-related books for you to peep at. I had to really resist talking about the leaves of books in terms of their pages, so just know that I stayed away from that pun out of kindness to you. If you have any topics that you want to see, any books that you feel should be added to the list, please let me know in the comments or shoot me an email. And I look forward to seeing you for our next episode. And as promised, a list of the books that were discussed today. Please do support your local and indie book dealers. They can use your support, and often you can do that through the internet, even if you cannot get to see them. Again, if you have anything that should make the list, let me know. And just a few more of those books that were mentioned in today's podcast. Also, a small apology for all the noise. Sometimes it's nice and quiet around here, and sometimes, like when you're recording a podcast, everyone wants to make noise. So, again, any questions or anything you want to see added to our topic list or to the list in general, let us know.